Wow. We're only a few short days from literally the game. The one game I've been obsessed with for the longest period of my entire life. The one game I've been looking forward to the most. The one thing probably that I've been looking forward to the most in my entire life. And that's Metroid Prime 4. Now, people that follow the channel or know me in real life, they probably don't need me to go over what this game is and what it means to me. But just to reiterate very quickly, I've been a Metroid fan since I was very, very young. I played Metroid 2 on the Game Boy. I played rented versions of Super Metroid at cousin's house. I didn't become a proper fan, I don't think, until Fusion and Prime came out. That's when I would say that it got its hooks really into me, and I like grew aware of like the whole series. And then, of course, the lead up to stuff like Zero Mission and Metroid Prime 2, I started to like go online and dig into, because this was when, kids couldn't just go online whenever. This is 2004. You had to use the computer to go online. And I would go on Metroid database and look stuff up about that. I remember getting Prime 2, beating it, a couple months after launch. I think it was around February that I eventually beat it, which is like, that's so crazy to me that it took multiple months for me to beat that game when I can beat it in like 2 days now. But I beat it and I was immediately like, where's Prime 3? When are we going to get Prime 3? And like looking that up online, and those 2 years between when I beat, I guess like 2.5 years, whatever, between when I beat Prime 2 and when Prime 3 came out, excruciating. Now, though, 18 years have come between Prime 3 and Prime 4, and I've gone from middle school student to 30-year-old adult with a house. So things have changed. Things have definitely changed. And I don't want to go over that and my feelings necessarily, but I do want to talk a little bit about just some elements of Prime 4, what I'm feeling before the game comes out. So just my general impressions of the game so far, things I'm excited about, things I'm not so excited about. And I'm going to try not to really discuss or get into any of the like online controversies, whether that be about the bike or Soul Valley or some of the NPC companions. I just want to give my own personal perspective on those without either debunking or supporting or doing whatever. Like, this is all coming from the heart. It's not coming from like external sources. So right now, obviously, we're a few days away. I am on fire. I am so excited for this game. Nothing I have seen has really proven to me that it's something worth not being excited about. In fact, the more footage that we see, barring a few things here and there, have gotten me like out of my mind excited and made me fully realize just how big this game is going to be in like a, I don't know, in an epic scale. Not necessarily in a length or like size scale, but in a like impact on me kind of scale. Like just how big it's going to be. Especially like the last overview trailer, showing off a lot of the new areas. Some of the footage that we've seen on like the Japanese site, seeing like some boost ball puzzles, seeing some like shrines, it looks like, in the fucking desert, seeing like, I don't know, the confidence from some aspects of the game that maybe I'm a little bit mixed on, but I'm interested now due to the fact that they're even going there, but I'll talk about that later. So all in all, I'm pretty hyped for the game still. In fact, now that we're like a couple days away from it, it's like kind of the only thing I can really think about. I'm trying to play through Digimon Time Stranger and get a good chunk into that before Prime 4 comes out and consumes my life. but it's hard to not just constantly. I have to play something else to like dull my mind to the reality that like we're mere days away from this thing that I have like obsessed about. I mean, basically ever since Other M came out, and I was like, all right, next up on the docket, that's Prime 4. And then it just kept not coming, and then I just kept on getting more and more anxious over time. There's probably, on my Discord channel, which started in 2016, you know, with my friends, I think that I can find messages from like 2016, from before Prime 4 was actually revealed or announced to be a thing, of me talking about it and still like, you know, banging that drum. And it just goes to show like it's not only a huge part of my life, but it's a huge part of all of my friends' lives. Like, even if they don't know or care about Prime 4, they're still like all eyes on me in expectation for me to enjoy it. And yeah, the pressure's on, but I really don't feel like it's going to disappoint. Like, I feel like everything that I've seen, even the things that I'm more mixed on, have great potential, and that's what I will talk about. So the things that I'm the most excited for. First off, just gotta talk about it. This game definitely is the best looking Switch 2 game, despite being a Switch 1 game. And I would say maybe even over stuff like Cyberpunk, but that obviously is like a very powerful game that was like dumbed down for the Switch 2, whereas like this was a really good Switch 1 game, like the best looking Switch 1 game, given that extra bump in resolution for Switch 2. And I know that Mario Kart World and Donkey Kong Bonanza were also kind of Switch 1 games that were like bumped up in processing power. I do think there are some people who are a little bit uncharitable to that and think that it's like literally we could have played them on the Switch, which is just not true. So every area that we've seen, every vista, all the like little sections of the areas that we've seen have just looked absolutely gorgeous. And I'm excited to see what we haven't seen, you know. We've still only gotten such a small glimpse, even though it's been a great variety of stuff. Like, people talk about the Japanese site spoiling too much, but even that, it's like these very brief, like, couple second clips of like little moments of like a boss fight or a weapon being used or like a character interaction. And that is, you know, that seems like a lot in a vacuum of like nothing, but when we have like the full game in front of us, it's really gonna like fade away and gonna feel like, oh yeah, that we really didn't know that much about this game going into it. And that's like my overwhelming excitement is like we don't know. There's so many unknowns, so there's so much potential for it to be great. I would say that probably controversially, Soul Valley is the area I'm the most excited about on a potential level, because like I talked about, it does look like they are populating it with stuff like shrines. Now there's also like the wreckage of the Galactic Federation base from the beginning of the game that's all around there. But just in general, I do like deserts. I think that they are a really cool biome. I think that it's like there's something kind of like gorgeous about the infinity of, you know, just this like big wasteland of sand. And I don't know, I never had a like, oh, deserts are boring kind of opinion, so I was just kind of always locked in. As soon as I saw it, I was always like interested to see. I really like the kind of like the reddish tint of the sand contrasting the like purple sky. It's just like a very cool look, as well as like all of the different areas kind of like standing in the distance, with Chrono Tower being like this central fixture. And then, like I said, like the different Lemorne statues that you can encounter and go into like underground areas. We don't know the extent of how that will be done. Maybe you'll get just like a missile upgrade. Maybe you'll get other upgrades, other resources. You know that you're collecting like those green crystals for some purpose to like But yeah, like that like Viola the bike, I never really considered that as it was definitely like unexpected. But it seems like a pretty natural combination of a couple scrapped elements that they wanted to put in there, the speed booster and like the ship segments from Prime 3. They just kind of merged them together into one gameplay mechanic that solved like a few of those problems, even to the point where you can use the Viola in normal areas, like in the like regular Metroid Prime 4 areas, you can use it. And I think that's pretty cool. You could probably use it to get across certain gaps that you wouldn't otherwise, and things like that. What other things that I'm excited about? Oh yeah, I think that the combat feels like a lot more punchy than it does in like the previous Prime games. Especially like I love Prime 1; it's my favorite game ever. But combat is kind of a drag. Way that combat is done, like with the psychic powers, with like a lot of just like the impact, the like sound effects, the all of that stuff. I'm just while I don't think like the mouse controls are gonna like elevate it to some like epic level or something, I don't think Prime is like that kind of game where it needs the discrete mouse controls. It is a fun option to be able to use, and I'm interested to see like how that feels. I'll probably like swap between it pretty freely because I just use the two Joy-Cons anyway. I think the last thing that I'm like cautiously optimistic about is the story. It seems like there's a lot of sauce that they're kind of mixing together in the story. And a more in-depth story is something I've kind of wanted from Metroid, just because I feel like Other M was so close to being interesting with its story, but it just kind of failed. I don't think that the Federation or just NPCs in general, that was the problem. I think that, it just had like a lot of plot lines that didn't go anywhere. It had a lot of characters that felt like filler characters that are just kind of, padding out the cast. Like, that's the problem. Also, the combat fucking sucks in Other M. Like, that's a big issue, in my opinion, that drags the game way down. Whereas, like, other elements, like, the fact that it had a story or dialogue was not the issue, in my opinion. I feel like that's, like, orthogonal to the issues or quality of any Metroid game is, like, the isolation factor or the like lack of story, like the minimalist in the story. I think it's always more interesting on a baseline level with a minimalist story, but then you have stuff like Super Metroid, which I think, or Metroid Prime, which does a minimalist story extremely well, and then you have something like not Other M, but Dread, which has a minimalist story. It has a few bits of like lore, like dumps here and there, but for the most part, like, it doesn't really do anything with its, like, story or world. It doesn't, like, tell a story. It doesn't have, like, the conclusion is cool, but it's not, like, emotionally stirring in any way. It doesn't feel like it, says anything, I guess is what I'm saying. So I guess that brings us to some of the stuff that I'm a little bit worried about, and I think, like, a lot of people are worried about. I'll kind of go in chronological order from like when we were revealed this information. So I wasn't one of the people who immediately saw the Soul Valley as like an open world thing. I did always see it as like, oh, it's like Hyrule Field. That being said, while I do love those 3D Zelda games, I don't necessarily think Metroid's strengths are in, oh, here's the central hub area, and then here's these like sectioned off different zones. To me, the best Metroid games are always able to like weave together the zones in whatever way. Stuff like, Super Metroid does it, Metroid Prime does it, Metroid Dread does it, where you can go from one area and then there's multiple different exits to multiple different areas like within that one area. That is still possible. That's a thing in Prime 4. I just am a little bit worried that it's not. And that would mean that if you're in one area and you got to backtrack to like Fury Green, then that means you gotta like get your ass on the motorcycle, drive all the way across the desert, get to Fury Green. And then the issue arises if like quick travel or fast travel exists and it's not contextualized through like a portal or something that you access. It's, you know, just like you go into the map and then you click on that icon and you teleport there. Then it sort of starts to make the big desert feel less like, oh, you're on an adventure, you're going through this, and more like a thing that's in your way. Yeah, that's just like one problem I have, is that there's not going to be enough like connective tissue between the areas. They're all going to be connected through the Soul Valley, and I hope I'm proven wrong, but it really doesn't seem like there's any way at the moment that like Fury Green or Ice Belt or Flare Pool or any of these areas like are connected to each other. There is an elevator at the end of the preview footage that we've seen, and like that's where the game's, you know, cuts off. And there are parts of the game that have been edited out by the request of Nintendo, like in those preview footage, that give away like story context. So it may be something that we're missing, and it will make more sense when we get the full game, which is, you know, I hope so. But obviously that's a concern. Wouldn't ruin the game, but it would be kind of a missed opportunity after all these years to do something that's, you know, less like Metroid Prime and more like that 3D Zelda style. Like, whatever changes Prime 4 wants to make doesn't really matter to me. I mean, we have Super and Prime on the Switch. It's not like we're hurting for those games, and those are games I've played literally. Prime 1 I played literally over 100 times. Like, just an absolutely absurd amount of times. So, it's not exactly like a novel experience. So that's why I'm like, yeah, I would have liked something that was closer to that in structure, but I'm not like, it's not like the end of the world, you know. I'm fine with it if it's not the case. I kind of hope that they can just pull it off and it'll feel good. And that is just the overwhelming feeling I usually have about changes in general in games or anything else, is that I have my bias, but I try to look at changes to a formula neutrally rather than positive or negative, you know. So, but the other thing that I'm a little bit concerned about, due to having a bad track record with it, are indeed the characters. So, in general, I think what we've seen of them is enough for me to be interested in. It's charming, but it is a little bit generic, you know. And this is my problem with the GF in general, is that they are just like pretty generic, like Starship Troopers or Aliens or that kind of thing. Yes, I know that Metroid is trying to be a reference to like a lot of sci-fi, but they could spice it up a little bit. I think there's some glimpses of that. Honestly, Miles McKenzie is a huge, like, I was very excited to see that, because when I saw the overview trailer first, and I was like, oh, all these guys, cool. And then when I saw McKenzie, I was like, first of all, oh, that's the guy from the back of the box. So that's funny. And then two, he's such like an annoying guy. He's like so obnoxious. It's kind of funny though. Like, not necessarily like, I don't know. I don't think like he's cracking jokes or cracking wise or whatever, like everybody's like saying that he is. I think he's just like an annoying yapping guy that, like, that's interesting though, because we haven't had like a Federation guy that's like this. The previous Metroid Prime game, or at least the previous numbered game, Prime 3, we had 3 companions who got maybe like a couple lines of dialogue, but otherwise like were just at the beginning of the game and then died later. Poor Rundis. He doesn't get any dialogue after he gets corrupted, unlike Gantreda and Gore. And I love those fights, and I think that it is really impactful, and they did a lot with very little. Like, that's like kind of a backhanded compliment, but they were very like potentially interesting characters, but didn't really do a lot with them. really goofy. Like, they all are very much like X-Men or like Ben 10 aliens, which was kind of the aesthetic at that time with like hunters as well. But this is, it's like a little bit more grounded, but then you have like, yeah, these broad archetypes of like the dorky mechanic, which I love, by the way. Just in general, I guess I call it it's the childhood crush of Gadget from Rescue Rangers, but we're not going to get into that. But like, oh, the smooth and like serious but stoic kind of sniper guy. You got like the eager cadet and the like gruff commander. You got like the emotionless robot that has like these little bits of passion or feeling that are inside of him. I think there is a lot of potential for it to be good, but just the track record of Metroid as far as like introducing characters, it always feels like wasted potential. It always feels like I get way more excited about it than the games are willing to go, through with. So like I even felt that with like Quiet Robe and Ravenpeak. We get one scene with Quiet Robe and it's beautiful, and then he dies, and then whatever, yes, there's a scene of him at the end of the game as an ex-parasite helping you, but like I'm not even gonna try to untangle what the fuck any of that means. And like Ravenbeak in general, like, okay, he is your father, he's evil, he's like Bird Darth Vader, who cares? What the fuck does that have to do with what's going on? Samus being a silent protagonist and us being like, I guess we can maybe construct a story in our heads about like what their task was, but we really had no indication that this guy was a thing until Samus Returns. So and I was so hyped for Ravenbeak, but again, it just kind of like cool fight. Rest of it was a bit of a fall off. Same thing with like, the Federation and Other M. I was super excited about that. I was excited to see more about Adam. I wanted to know who this black guy who said "Remember Me" was. That guy, though, great character. I love Anthony. Adam, bad. Rest of the Federation, who cares? Completely worthless characters. Kind of mildly interested in like Melissa and Madeline Bergman, but otherwise, like, yeah, it just kind of like pissed away all the potential. So I can see that just happening again with these guys. But the fact that they're putting such a focus on it in the marketing and like the ads, like some Japanese commercials have like really focused on that. This is more of a mixed, I guess, like I'm kind of expecting it to go nowhere and these guys to just like fill a slot, basically be like, one and done mission guys that you hang out with in the areas. But I'm really hoping that I'm proven wrong and that my suspicions of it being like greater than the sum of its parts are correct. Because either way, if those lackluster elements are a thing, yeah, I think it could drag the game down, but I can't see it being worse than Prime 3. And I love Prime 3, but there are so many random issues with that game that crop up because of its structure and its mechanics that I just can't imagine Prime 4 getting into that much of a mess that Prime 3 got. So I think like that's the best way to talk about it. It's at least going to be better than Prime 3, which was a masterpiece, by the way. So, I'm still very optimistic about it, even if those things have me worried. And yes, I am the psychopath that is the most excited because of Miles McKenzie, just because I like that archetype. I like the, again, the like dorky mechanic type. I don't know what it is. I just think that he has charm. He's adorable. I got it. He is an annoying cretin, but there's something moe about that,